Now I'd like to say a bit about this other strange device next to me. This is a reading machine from the early 20th century called an optophone. It was designed around 1913 by a lecturer in physics at the University of Birmingham. Now, it looks a bit like a desktop scanner, maybe a steampunk scanner. It has a glass top and then some machinery underneath it, and it operates much like a scanner would as well. So you would place a book on top of it, and just like a scanner, it would scan with beams of light the entire page. But instead of translating the printed page into electronic text the way a scanner would today, it would translate the printed page into musical tones. It's often been called the musical book rather than the talking book. So when these beams of light are scanning underneath the book through the glass surface, each letter would have a distinct tone. And anyone listening to the device would be trained into how to convert those musical tones back into language. Now, as you can imagine, this was a difficult process and a time-consuming one. The earliest demonstrations took place in London around 1918, when a woman named Mary Jameson gave examples of how to read a novel using this technology. The first exhibitions that she put on, she read at the rate of 1 word per minute. So that's extremely slow. The average speed of reading for a sighted reader is about 300 words per minute. So you can see how difficult it would be to hear these musical notes and then translate them back into verbal letters. But she did go on and get better at using the technology, and the technology improved over those years too to make it slightly more user-friendly. Mary Jameson, in fact, could read up to speeds of 40 to 60 words per minute around the 1920s, and she did become the first blind person to read a page from an ordinary book. This was extremely useful because even though she was an avid Braille reader, plenty of material wasn't translated into Braille. It could be time-consuming and expensive to do so. So if this technology could be used by everyone, it would be a way for blind people not to be dependent on the limited selection of Braille material out there. And it was invented just prior to the First World War, so slightly earlier than talking book technology. So the first novel that Mary Jameson went on to read then during these demonstrations was by Anthony Trollope, and it was called The Warden. We can hear an example from this machine, even though not many recordings survive. We do have more modern clips. So I have a very rough recording made of some of the Optophone's early sounds. And this recording was made by Patrick Nye around 1965. He was working on technology to help blind people, and he reconstructed some of these early sounds for recording, and I'm grateful to Elaine Nye at the Haskins Laboratory for providing this recording. What we're going to hear then are the musical tones corresponding to the lowercase to 8 lowercase letters: F, I, K, J, P, Q, R, and Z. So I'll play that recording now, and you can hear a set of musical notes that would have been heard by a blind reader using this machine.
Firstly, the 8 letters scanned by the conventional optophone system.
Okay, so I described those notes as musical tones, but you can hear, from those sounds at least, it's discordant and difficult to follow, especially if you're trying to read a long work using this machine. So as adept as Mary Jameson was at using the technology, it wasn't easy and it wasn't practical for many other people to use this machine, and the Optophone wasn't used much after the 1920s. You can see, however, the emergence of later technologies involving scanners. So optical character recognition scanning that we use today. So in some ways, even though this is a machine that isn't heard of after the 1920s, it's an important step in looking at the history of trying to find alternative ways of reading print. So these are just a couple examples then of different reading technologies designed to help blind people over the last couple of centuries. And it's important to note that a lot of this technology is still in use today. So people are still reading Braille, using refreshable Braille displays. People are still listening to talking books using DAISY players or MP3 players.
So if you want to learn more about the exhibition and the events that we held around it as well, then you can visit our website, which is www.howweread.co.uk.